All right, I think I'm gonna start a new project. I've had this in mind for weeks or months now. Behind me you can see a fairy ring of redwoods. I'm guessing it was cut down 105, 110 years ago because that's about how old this house is. In the book Conifers of California by Ronald Lanner, it writes, "Redwood trees can regenerate itself, colonial as well as by sea. Unlike any other North American conifer, redwood harbors basal dormant buds on the large roots that spread from its trunk. When a tree dies, these buds can sprout within months to form a thick circle of vigorous stems called fairy rings around the parent tree or its stump." I wanted only California natives, so it took me a few different places, but I have a bunch of options. I have pink flowering currant, Douglas iris, California huckleberry, wild ginger, sword fern. Hopefully these two wild woodland strawberries rebound. They didn't water them enough. I feel like they'll rebound. This one's definitely gonna live. More sword fern. And here I have a bunch of really cool things. Western azalea, island allium root, another western azalea, and then, oh yeah, salal. Some really perfect ones for acidic partial light. I'm gonna plant these in this lower area that we've never used for anything before. California Foraging by Judith Lowry. We can read about the California huckleberry, the western huckleberry. It's also known as the black huckleberry, California huckleberry, evergreen huckleberry, winter huckleberry, and shot huckleberry. Huckleberries are edible. Their recommended use is here, retaining their shape in pancakes, muffins, pies, and breads. Evergreen huckleberries are a treat in baked goods. Eat raw or cooked, they also dry easily, seeming to be almost mold resistant, turning into superlative raisins that have lasted as long as 10 years. Even when casually stored in a seed collecting envelope, they freeze well and make coveted juices, jams, jellies. Commercial imitations of the jams and jellies are common, but the real thing is rare and precious. We're lucky to have them. In this book, Indian Uses of Native Plants, of course I'd prefer if it said Native American uses of native plants, they talk about the Shoshone and the huckleberry. Huckleberry feasts of these same people were held in early fall when huckleberries ripened. In Growing California Native Plants by Marjorie Schmidt and Catherine Greenberg, they talk about salal. This plant is most useful as a ground cover under redwoods, where it forms dense colonies from creeping roots, or in shady borders with ferns and wild ginger. Birds enjoy the dark purple fruits, and Native Americans made the berries into syrup. Salal berries are often consumed on the spot, but are often sometimes dried, mashed into cakes, and used to make fruit leather. Because the berries are naturally soft, fruit leather is a good way to preserve them. They sweeten as they dry. Yum. Island allium root has larger leaves and taller flowers and stems than mainland species. Creamy white flowers and long blooming, the foliage can be cut back every few years to renew the plants. This plant grows easily in the garden and performs best in Central and Northern California. Flowers are white or pink and leaves are typically basal, dark green, and sparingly hairy. Allium root was also used as a medicine. The root was pounded up and used wet to apply to sores and swelling. Also in Growing California Natives, it talks about western azalea. The showy, fragrant flowers of western azalea make it a desirable plant for the woodland garden. Western azalea is best with shade-loving plants such as ferns, wild ginger, salal, and barberries. Wild ginger is a trailing evergreen plant that inhabits shady, often moist, forested areas. A common ground cover in redwood forests, redwood ginger is used essentially as a foliage plant because its maroon flowers are hidden amongst dark green, aromatic, cordate leaves. Wild ginger is not the same as the ginger you buy in stores, but it still has an edible rhizome. The root can be chopped into 1-inch long pieces and candied, or used in stir fry. It can be made into a tea that makes irresistible ice cream and pudding. The leaves also make a good tea and can be boiled and left to soak in water or milk to use the flavor in puddings. Remove the leaf after the infusion is strong enough. Native Americans also made a rope with Douglas iris. The iris has threads on the outside of each leaf. These are stripped by the women wearing a long thumbnail and a mussel shell over it. The leaf is caught between the nail and the shell, and a long stout thread is secured. Having procured the necessary threads, the men proceed to weave the ropes and accompanying nets. A deer rope near 20 feet long with lasso at one end and about half an inch in diameter. The loop was set over a deer trail to catch head or antlers. Within the set loop over the trail was spread a delicate network of the same material to draw in the loop. Pomo Indians called this vadik. For the pink flowering currant. Currants produce a profusion of flowers, usually shady pink, crimson, yellow, or white. The edible fruits are enjoyed by people and wildlife, and the flowers are a source of nectar for hummingbirds. Western sword fern. Western sword fern is probably the most adaptable native fern, thriving in humus-rich soil and requiring little moisture when established. Dark green, pinnate blades with sword-shaped leaflets are upright and spreading. This fern is excellent in dry shade under oaks, or with curel bells and irises, or planted with western bleeding heart and wild ginger under redwoods. It grows in deep shade and tolerates half-day sun near the coast or filtered shade inland. Plants may be increased by division of the rhizome in early spring, keeping it moist and shaded until new growth begins. Woodland strawberries. Woodland strawberry is effective with ferns and irises in a shaded garden, or used as ground cover under shrubs. It produces delicious small fruits that ripen in summer. This little simple fence is super cute. It's really easy to install. It's going to serve the exact purpose I want it to. I mean, somebody could easily still hop over it, but it's a deterrent to stay out of my native garden. I'm going to plan to do a little fairy garden for my little girls up there, so it's like super cute. Really easy to put in. I'm going to repurpose the legs of this bench, this 50-year-old plus bench. I'm going to repurpose that, and I'm going to use it for the feet for this beautiful piece of wood that I got free off the side of the road. It's just this really cool cross cut. Sure does look pretty. Some huckleberry, western sword fern, Douglas iris, allium root. The salal is hard to see, but it's right back there. Oops. I'm standing on the western azalea. I installed this pretty fence. Douglas iris, ginger, western azalea, huckleberry, western sword fern, pink flowering currant, and then my woodland strawberries did not make it, but that's okay. I have my flamingo drinking fountain. I have my little fairy house for my little girls. Oh, she's filling it with rocks. We have this beautiful little bench. This is reused from that bench that's over 50 years old from 2 owners ago. A beautiful piece of wood, some bird seed and some fairy seeds. Couldn't be happier.